Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm Joe Kent, running for Congress. I'm the Republican nominee. I had the honor of serving our country for a little over 20 years as a Green Beret, went to combat 11 times for this country. I'm running because, unfortunately, our nation is being really hurt right now by the policies of the Democrat Party that have been fully supported by my opponent, Marie Perez. Inflation is hurting working families. I don't have to tell you, you understand what the price of the pump is, what the price of the grocery store is. This is a direct result of out-of-control spending in Washington, D.C. D.C. continues to print more and more money. Marie Perez, my opponent, has authorized over $4 trillion of new inflationary spending. And that's really hurting people here in the district. We have to ask ourselves, what have we gotten back in return for all this out-of-control spending? We have bridges that need to be fixed. We have real infrastructure problems. We have potholes that need to be filled in. The people here need to be better served. Instead, my opponent and the Democrats are continuing to send billions and billions of dollars overseas for more overseas adventures, foreign wars, foreign aid, and to line the pockets of their special interest groups that fund their campaigns. So we need to start putting the people in the district here first because they're hurting. We also have another major crisis. Our country is under invasion right now. We've had millions of illegal immigrants enter our country. We've had enough fentanyl get pumped into our nation to kill every American multiple times over. We have children, infants, babies that are being killed right now by fentanyl. The fentanyl is coming from the wide open southern border. I know this because I've gone out and I've done ride-alongs here in Lewis County. I'm honored to be endorsed by Sheriff Staza here in Lewis County. I've done ride-alongs throughout the entire district with law enforcement officers. And they tell me that this fentanyl is coming from the wide open southern border. Now, unfortunately, I was very disappointed. One of the first votes that my opponent took in Congress was to leave Biden and Harris's border wide open. And then she came back to the district and said, no one stays awake at night worrying about the open southern border. Well, we're staying awake here at night worrying about the southern border, and so is the family of Trooper Chris Gatt, who was killed by an illegal immigrant who should have been deported, but this state, with its sanctuary protections, protected that illegal immigrant. We have to get control of our border. I know exactly how to do that from my background in the military. We also have to start putting working families first. We have to really worry about the inflation that they're suffering from. We have to worry about what's taking place in the schools. Now, my opponent, she's kind of mastered the art of speaking like a moderate but voting like a radical. My opponent voted to let biological men into women's sports and into women's spaces, to let men go into the little girls' room in our schools and to compete against them on the athletics field. Now, it's just common sense that we have to protect our young daughters, we have to protect our young girls. That is a very, very extreme stance. So I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to start putting the people of this district first. Now, my opponent, she's doing what most of the Democrats are doing right now. They're playing firemen to the fires that they set. They're trying to put firemen and ours to the absolute this thing's kind of malfunctioning. We've actually established a website so people can understand what her voting record truly is. It's called mariewatch.com. There's links on there to her actual voting record, so you don't have to hear it from me. You can get the truth about how she's actually been representing us in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. And now we'll take questions.
So I'm wondering, I'm over here, what's your stance on abortion?
That's a great question. So abortion is a very complex issue. I agree with the Supreme Court's decision to return that to the states. I would not support a federal abortion ban. All the decisions about abortion are right back here at the state level. What I do support is bringing down the cost of raising children, so expanding a child tax deduction for working families, making items like baby formula and diapers tax deductible so we can bring down the cost of raising children.
Hi, Joe. That's the fun question I always ask. So what is your opinion of the flow-through dam that we're trying to build at PL for flood control?
Look, we need more federal resources in that regard. We need the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to participate in that. Unfortunately, my opponent voted not to fund the Army Corps of Engineers. We need more participation in flood relief in Lewis County from the Corps of Engineers, so I would be happy to get federal funding allocated to help out with that project and help out with flood relief.
over here.
Okay.
Okay. With all due respect, I want to piggyback on this lady's question. What is your stance on abortion? You went on to tell us about bringing it to the states. And is the state going to tell us as women that what we can do with our bodies? Or is it the individual woman's right to say what she wants to do with her body, regardless of if it's a religious issue or any other issues?
I agree with the Supreme Court's decision. That's no longer a federal issue. So in Congress, we'll have nothing to do with abortion. I don't support a federal abortion ban. All of that is back at the states. Abortion is a divisive issue. I think putting it back down at the state level is the right way to go. Here in Washington State, I mean, we have, I think, abortion up to the 12th or 15th week, so there's no issue here with abortion in Washington.
So Joe, over here, so I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. Marie Perez has been voting to not support funding for veterans. What's your stance on supporting veterans through funding in D.C.?
Yeah, I was really disappointed when my opponent voted not to fund the VA. That's a basic service. We have to fund the Veterans Administration. I get some of my health care from the VA. We need to bring back veterans' choice so veterans are in the driver's seat and they're able to get the care that they need at the medical facility closest to them. We also need to reopen rural veterans clinics like the one that was closed down in Chehalis, but I think veterans' choice is definitely the way to go. We also have to start holding the VA accountable. Again, I was really disappointed when my opponent basically in the same month, my opponent voted not to fund the VA, but also voted to leave our troops deployed into Iraq and Syria. Since then, we've had 3 service members killed in defending the border of Iraq, Jordan, and Syria while our border is wide open. Our troops are under fire. We're taking casualties right now, and Marie Perez voted not to fund the VA. That is absolutely despicable.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, Joe. I understand that there's a lot of different issues to talk about, but the one thing that Marie seems to be putting out is that she's so supportive of farmers and loggers. And as a Farm Bureau member, I was very disappointed in our Bureau for endorsing her. Can you give me an insight on what your knowledge is of the agriculture industry, especially in this county?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big issues that we face in the natural resources industry and in the farming industry is we have too much interference from Washington, D.C. Regulatory capture, the way that we have bureaucrats in D.C. passing regulations that essentially become laws that make it very difficult for small farms, for small timber operations to either harvest timber or to run their farms efficiently and go farm to table. There's way too many regulations there. We need to get the federal government out of it, return control of natural resources and our farming back down to the local level. Now, my opponent voted to allow bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. to continue, unelected bureaucrats, all the different agencies, to continue to regulate our farms and our timber industries and also the Columbia River, all the fishing industry as well. So we need to get Washington, D.C. out of that. I trust local farmers. I trust local forestry experts to actually manage our resources better than unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C.